have your attention, please? And we will start this session. And I'm Rachel, the PhD student from Department of English and Communication. And for this session, for this presentation, we will have Matthew Ko from Hong Kong to give us a presentation. And the topic is complementing traditional mathematics classrooms with the ethical interaction of AI tools. Let's give him a warm welcome. You will have 25 minutes for presentation, and we have 5 minutes for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The presentation will be in Cantonese, but you can still see the English word in the presentation. 大家好啦，我係 Matthew。我係嚟自香港青年協會李兆基書院啦。咁我係一個中學嘅老師嚟嘅。咁我喺 AI 呢方面亦都唔係專家啦。咁其實就係、都係去睇翻即係依家有嘅 paper 同 research， 再結合埋自己嘅一啲教學經驗啦，咁去整理翻俾大家睇啫。咁我哋 topic 咧係關於點樣去彌補翻傳統嘅數學嘅課室啦，咁用一啲AI 嘅 tools 咧去幫手做一個 integration 咁樣嘅。咁點解會要諗到想用AI 去幫手咧？咁因為其實我哋平時嘅教學裏面咧，都遇到唔少嘅一啲sticky points 㗎。咁例如咧，咁我係一個中學老師啦，咁我相信呢度都有同工都有接觸過中學啦。咁其實個課程就相當緊湊。咁如果要能夠俾到一個instant 嘅 feedback 咧，俾同學咧，其實係比較困難嘅。即係譬如我哋改功課咁樣啦，咁其實譬如我學校咁樣規定就係一個禮拜咧先會交翻俾學生咁樣嘅。咁我哋試想下，其實一個禮拜之前咁學生自己做咗啲乜嘢，佢記唔記得咧？其實應該都唔係好記得好清楚啊。咁呢個係傳統教學我哋會發現有嘅問題啦。咁第二樣咧就係個人化嘅學習啊。咁我哋通常我哋派功課係點樣派㗎？都係一班咁咪做翻可能exercise 後面 exercise 2468題咁樣咯。咁我哋唔會每個學生嘅題目都唔同。咁我哋盡量去遷就嘅就係可能我哋喺個題目嗰度嘅深淺程度嗰度去就翻咯，確保每個功課都有簡單、有中等難度同埋有困難咁樣。咁另外就係一個學習嘅個 learning place 啊。咁因為每個人對學一樣新嘅知識都唔同啦。咁喺傳統嘅教學上面，咁其實我哋就逼住一定要大家跟翻同一個 pace 去學習咁樣。咁呢啲我哋都係希望咧 AI 係可以幫我哋去取代。咁 AI 做唔做到咧？咁我就問個 AI 啦，佢話自己做到嘅，係啦。咁佢講咗一篇嘢咁樣咯。咁你見到佢話其實佢哋都可以做到一個去 tailor-made 一個教學內容啦，可以俾到 immediate feedback 啦，咁都的確做得到嘅。由跟住可以簡化到老師一啲行政啦，同埋一啲 routine 嘅工作咁樣。咁但係個問題就係，我哋可唔可以去trust AI 咧？我哋可唔可以完全將呢件事交俾 AI 去教我哋嘅學生咧？咁我相信咧大家都有個疑問喺度啊，即係我可唔可以由下學年開始我就將我嘅 lesson plan， 將我嘅learning material 就咁放手俾 AI 咧？咁我去嘗試過去做一啲嘢嘅，咁就係咁但係其實咧 AI 會出錯嘅喎。咁呢一個係都係一個好經典嘅問題啦，就係9.11大啲定9.9大啲啦。咁呢個都即係上過新聞啊。咁就係話點解呢一樣嘢 AI 都係會有呢個 hallucination 咧？點解會有呢個呢個誤解喺度咧？咁但係佢係有喺度嘅。咁另外一個就係一啲簡單嘅運算啦。咁譬如一個乘數咁樣。咁AI 俾你嗰個 response 咧，佢就係即係呢個數字啦。咁我唔讀啦。咁但係其實答案咧應該係嗰個9乘0611啦。咁呢啲咁簡單嘅運算都出錯嘅時候，咁我哋能唔能夠相信 AI 咧？ 咁再講啦，咁就係、我當咁計數，咁其實計數幾都得啦，係咪？咁但係如果我將佢出一啲learning materials 咧，咁會有啲咩效果咧？咁我嘗試過啊，咁右手邊個咧，唔知大家即係睇唔睇得出啦？咁其實係一個rate and ratio 嘅問題咁樣咯。咁佢同我好好嘅，佢同我分咗咧 easy 啦、intermediate 仲有 difficult。咁但係咧，我哋去睇翻其實呢幾條問題咧，用嘅技巧咧都一模一樣，佢係轉咗個數字或者數字係大咗嘅啫。咁咪變咗我係假設，如果我係想我嚟做一啲分層嘅工作嘅，咁咪做唔到咯，因為佢用嘅 skills 全部都一樣啊嘛。咁如果譬如右手邊咁樣咯，右手邊嘅話咧，咁就係去嘗試用 AI 去出啲問題啦。咁但係結果係點樣咧？就係好難睇得明啦。我哋需要有一啲工具再幫我哋手啦。咁仲有一個例子就係關於啲 context 嘅問題。咁其實佢就用咗一個weight loss progress 嚟做一個例子咁樣咯。咁但係其實呢一個唔知大家有冇懷疑啦。其實即係如果講到減肥嘅話咧，咁班上面梗有啲同學仔唔多中意嘅，或者會引起佢哋嘅一啲physical 同埋 emotional health 嘅 issue 咁樣咯。咁呢啲都係唔 appropriate，就喺 context 上面。咁所以咧，我哋就要去諗一諗，其實我哋將呢啲嘢去 adopt 之前咧，我哋係咪有啲嘢需要諗清楚咧？咁呢個係UNESCO 即係嘅一啲節錄咁樣啦。咁我覺得有幾樣都同數學幾關事嘅啫。第一個咧就係咧嗰個我哋如果將啱啱以上嗰一啲 materials 就咁發放俾學生，我哋冇過濾過就咁發放俾學生。咁呢一啲咁嘅 unvalidated 嘅 context 上有問題，或者佢基本上係錯誤嘅嘢，咁叫唔叫做 learning 咧？另外一個咧就係我哋如果永遠都係透過 AI 去將啲答案去將嚟俾學生睇嘅。咁因為我哋大家都知道，其實 AI 所做嘅嘢其實唔係一啲新嘅嘢嚟噶嘛，都係透過佢資料搜集，然後跟住再俾翻我哋咁樣。咁呢一啲嘅homogenization 會唔會影響咗我哋學生嘅 creative thinking 咁樣咧？咁喺琴日啦，咁我去咗即係會展一個 Learning and Teaching Expo 咁樣咯。咁有個教授咧，咁佢就分享咗，佢係一個認知啦、心理學啦，同埋創意嘅專家嚟嘅。咁佢就喺英國嗰度做緊一個 project 咁樣，咁就係去研究 creativity 呢樣嘢。咁佢當中咧有個活動好有趣嘅，就係咧佢叫一班小學生去製作一個月球嘅登陸車出嚟咁樣。咁但係佢就唔同佢哋講個登陸車係咩樣，佢淨係去答啲咩咧？淨係答個登陸車嚟做啲咩嘅，佢喺咩地方可以行走到嘅或者佢有啲咩用途嘅咁樣。咁學生淨係透過呢一啲問題未睇過嗰架車係點樣，跟住就去自己畫出嚟咯。咁我哋就會見到，其實咁樣嘅時候就會有唔同嘅product 啦。咁我哋就要諗一諗，其實喺大家如果有睇過一啲數據研究都指出咧，其實數學同埋 creativity 咧呢兩樣嘅 context 咧，其實係有互相嘅連結咁樣嘅。咁呢一啲都係我哋喺adopt AI 之前咧可以諗一諗嘅問題先嘅。咁跟住咁仲有一樣啦，就係咧關於一個有一個 research 咧，咁就係做喺研究下LLMs 即係large language model 喺學習上面嘅一個efficacy 咁樣咯。咁佢就將咧佢又將一個問題咧，咁就先係俾學生去練習先。咁佢有3個唔同嘅介入方式咧，去教學生嘅。咁一個就係齋俾答案啦，一個咧就係有一個GPT4啦，custom 由跟住仲有一個方式咧，就係咧custom 咗嘅 GPT，即係佢係調整過嘅，當中啲答案係冇出錯啦，同埋符合學生嘅 syllabus 嘅。咁另外佢有2個模式去做，就係俾學生先係試咗先係睇咗答案先，或者睇咗 GPT 答案先， 或者佢自己 attempt 咗嗰個問題先。OK， 咁然後跟住最尾咧再做翻一個test problem 咁樣去驗證下咧。呢度 total 咧，咁應該有2乘3，有6個唔同嘅組合啦。咁試下邊個咧係最有效喎？咁邊個係最有效咧？咁呢個我 skip 少少先喺度。咁咧，我哋可以睇翻咧最終呢一點。OK， 我哋可以睇咗咧藍色嗰啲點先。藍色咧就睇咗答案先嘅。咁睇咗答案先，咁再去做嘅時候係點樣咧？你會見到齋睇答案咧，佢嘅 accuracy 咧係大概50% 多少少啦。咁然後跟住咧，隨住如果佢係用LM 去有個解釋嘅，然後跟住再加埋佢自己又睇咗先嘅，咁佢就係呢個。咁你會見到咧，有 LM 有AI 嘅幫助之下咧，咁同學喺學習嗰個成效咧係高過齋睇答案嘅。咁而另外一樣可以見到咧，就係咧，如果同學係試咗先嘅話咧，個效果更加好。咁我係想喺度想帶出啲咩咧？我想帶出幾點嘅就係咧，學生佢齋去睇 AI 嘅解釋好過齋睇答案。呢個第一個。第二樣咧就係咧，學生佢如果去嘗試咗個問題先去再睇個 AI 出嚟嘅答案，或者真係答案都好啦，咁佢會 perform 得好啲。咁第三樣咧就係咧，學生咧需要咧有基本嘅知識，佢先可以咧去 verify 個答案係咪啱嘅。因為我啱 skip 咗一個 slide 係啊。咁呢一個就係National Council of Teachers of Mathematics 咧，咁喺2024年嗰陣時提出嘅就係咧。佢話老師咧，咁其實係不論有冇 AI 工具都好啦。咁其實咧可以去考慮一下，其實我哋依家有冇需要將嗰個學生嘅thinking 咧，由 solving alone 轉做 solving and verifying，即係話其實依家好似計數機咁樣。咁我哋喺香港咧，小學咧係唔俾用計數機噶嘛。咁中學可以俾用計數機啦。咁但係如果佢小學佢冇學加減乘除數，佢點知計數機出嚟答案啱唔啱咧？咁就係類似呢個道理啦。我哋除 AI 可以幫我哋解決好多solving 嘅問題，咁但係我哋能唔能夠去判斷咧？其實都要靠自己嘅基礎知識，對嗰個 subject 嘅基礎知識咧，先可以做得到嘅。咁所以就住呢幾點啦。咁呢個係我哋即係我哋試過唔同嘅工具啦，咁可以做到一啲嘢啦。咁我今日咧會將嗰個即係嗰個practical 嘅 adoption 咧，就會擺喺個 intelligent tutoring system 啦，同埋應該有個係俾 feedback 嗰度嘅。咁我哋會用呢個工具啦，咁係 provide 一個點子俾大家，俾個 idea 大家。咁我哋點樣可以結合啱啱嗰3個重點？學生要自己做，學生要先做咗先，同埋學生有基礎嘅底下咧，咁我哋可以幫助到佢哋學習啦。咁喺咁其實第一個咧係photo math。咁 photo math 咧，咁其實對我哋香港嘅中學生嚟講唔陌生噶啦。咁其實我以前教書嘅時候都唔知道有呢個工具，咁係學生話俾我聽。咁我點解知咧？因為我見到佢哋平時唔識做數嘅同學仔咧，功課好好喎。咁係用咩做咧？就用 photo math 去做啦。咁呢個工具佢其實就係可以做到可以 solve 好多嘅algebraic 嘅 problem 啦。咁但係呢個其實係一件好嘢嚟㗎，因為佢 show 晒個 step 俾大家睇啊嘛。咁因為如果學生平時佢淨係望住本書嘅答案咧，其實佢未必知道點解呢題數解完之後會出呢個。咁但係呢一個工具係就係可以用手機咁掃個題目咧，佢就可以做得到。咁其實呢件係好事嚟，但係點樣將呢件好事係可以讓學生去做得到咧？咁我之前就揾咗個學校嘅一啲學生去做咗一個實驗咁樣啦，就係佢哋都係照正常去做功課嘅，呢啲係佢哋做嘅。咁然後佢哋用 photo math 自己 check 一次先。咁跟住咁佢哋 check 到啦，有錯啦，咁啊即刻改咗，先再交俾我。咁同之前有咩分別咧？之前就係佢做完呢邊，隔咗1個禮拜，我同佢講你錯啊，你改正啦。咁件事咧就會攤咗好耐。咁但係依家佢用 photo map 去 check 咗先，其實佢已經會 check 到自己有啲錯。咁譬如呢個第8題咁樣咧，咁 啲字可能有啲細啦，其實佢漏咗約簡嘅。咁最尾約簡完之後咧，出嚟個答案咧可以再簡化啲，咁就變成2咁樣。咁佢當中咧其實係能夠即時幫自己做咗一個 instant feedback，就唔係等到我1個禮拜之後先再俾翻佢，咁佢唔知發生咩事。咁但係呢一樣就係頭先講到話，佢要做咗先咯。如果佢一嚟佢又做呢個，咁就唔係做功課啦，咁就同我哋認知嘅學習就不一樣啦。佢要自己去認識咗一次先，跟住佢見到錯，佢再跟住改翻咯。咁第二樣咧，咁就其實佢呢度有個 QR code 咧可以去嘅。呢一個頭先 Photo Math 嗰係唔使收費，呢個要收費，但係佢好似每日有15至17個 quota 咁樣。咁佢呢個工具咧，佢係一個專課數學嘅一個 AI 咁樣啦。咁佢當中咧有個咧位置叫 practice section，咁我覺得係相當好，因為佢係好接近一個intelligent tutoring system 應有嘅樣子啊。咁大概俾你睇一睇佢係點樣做。咁其實咧你可以就咁喺呢度你揀翻自己揀嘅 school level 啦，由跟住度打翻你對應嘅topics 咁樣咯。咁跟住佢就會自己開始 gen 啲問題出嚟。咁佢將問題咧，咁啲問題會喺呢度嘅。咁你有得 attempt， 你有得去 grade， 有得 solution， 有得 chat。咁你基本上如果你唔 attempt 嘅話咧，佢唔會俾個 solution 你嘅。咁如果你 attempt 錯咗咧，佢會同你講咧你點樣去改善，而唔係直接俾個答案你。咁呢一樣都係對學生嚟講好緊要，佢自己試過一次先咯。咁跟住仲有佢有個位咧，我覺得都係設計得相當好，即係有上過咧呢度呢個箭嘴咧，你見到有紙上紙落，其實係可以做啲咩？就係校個難度，佢可以自己調節嗰條題目嘅難度。咁俾一俾大家睇咧，佢個效果係點樣？呢個就係就住頭先嗰條題目咧，咁你見到咧，佢將佢分咗兩邊。咁佢咁你將較低難度，你咪見到頭先係一個3乘3嘅 matrix，而家變咗2乘2咯。咁如果較難啲嘅，你會見到咧，佢除咗都仲係3乘3 matrix 啦，但係咧佢有 A、B part 咁樣。咁呢個就可以方便學生自己去做翻一個呢叫self regulated learning 咁樣啦。我係俾個系統佢，咁佢自己再從中去調節。咁都係啦。咁課數學上面咧，咁其實好多時候係需要一啲畫圖啦。咁其實頭先呢個工具咧，佢呢一個咧其實係decimal 嚟嘅。咁但係佢因為頭先個工具 filterize 咧，咁佢已經係 embed 咗個decimal 喺度。咁所以如果你叫佢自己 plot 圖咧，佢可以自己 plot 到個圖俾你咁樣㗎。係啦，咁另外啦，右手邊咧，其實你就可以叫翻一個 chatbot 出嚟啦。咁佢會同你解釋下嗰個題目點做。咁其實成個嘅流程就係好似啱所講，就係學生要自己做一次先，然後跟住佢可以有個 AI 喺隔離彈出嚟教佢，其實呢題係做啲你做錯啲乜嘢啊？咁佢會再即刻解答翻你咯。咁好似有一個真人嘅 tutor 喺你隔離咁樣。係啦，咁跟住咧去到老師部分啦。咁頭先我咧就係講學生啦，唔好抄功課啊，唔好偷做。咁但係其實咧，喺老師嚟講咧，其實我哋都要秉持翻咧同樣嘅一個 ethics 喺度啊。咁我哋有句説話咧叫 garbage in garbage out 啦。咁即係話，如果我哋俾啲垃圾個 AI 咧，其實 AI 都會俾翻個垃圾出嚟嘅。咁我想講嘅係咩咧？其實咧就係有時咧，我哋去，譬如我就咁叫佢 gen 一個 lesson plan，我冇加任何嘅指引俾佢咧，其實佢會俾多一個 lesson plan 我哋咧，其實唔係太有用嘅嚇。咁係啦，咁當中牽涉到咧就係要一啲prompting 嘅 skills 啦，咁樣。咁呢個我都呢個其實我之前整落嘅。咁其實佢有一啲 element 大家可以注意翻咯。咁但係呢度唔長講，因為我想介紹嘅工具俾你哋咧，就係其實遲啲我哋唔使去自己作啲 prompt 出嚟㗎啦嚇。咁呢度我show 俾你睇咧，就係咧一個兩個唔同嘅 worksheet，但係經歷過兩個唔同嘅 prompt 嘅。左手邊個咧簡陋少少嘅，因為我淨係打一句 generate a percentage worksheet。咁如果你仔細去可能花10秒鐘望一望啲問題咧，你會發現咧佢啲問題比較亂啲嘅，有啲 其實你唔係好 sure 係究竟俾一個咩年級嘅人做，因為譬如第一題咁樣，200嘅25% 係幾多？咁其實小學 level 嚟嘅，咁但係跟住咧跳一跳咧有 discount 咁樣喎，咁咧右手邊咧就係一個經歷咗一個詳細啲嘅 prompt 咧出嚟嘅，咁你會見到咧，咁佢工整少少啦，咁同埋佢啲題目咧會比較類近啲啦，咁比較咁個可用性會大少少。咁你點樣去即係點樣可以由呢一個 prompt 變成係呢一個咧？咁當中你要做呢個就係我哋要做嘅功課咯。我哋點樣令自己個 prompt 係真係 prompt 到一啲對我哋有用嘅嘢咧？咁呢一度咧係我之前自己整落嘅一個佢係 POE 嚟嘅。咁佢prompt generator 呢個唔係新嘢啦，應該1-2年前已經有噶啦。但係我講呢樣嘢出嚟嘅意思咧係即係會容易啲去寫一個 prompt 出嚟，因為我有時寫個 prompt 咧，我係唔知自己漏啲乜嘢。咁呢個 generator 佢出嚟嘅效果係點樣？咁大家其實可以好快咁打一個問題試一試嘅。咁佢就會出咗咧1、2、3、4樣嘢俾你。咁當中最重要嘅咧就係第一個就係 suggest 俾你個 prompt 啦，你見詳細啲啦。咁跟住佢有個 critique 嘅，佢會同你講咧，你個 prompt 咧有啲乜嘢唔足喎？可能你冇講明究竟你要啲乜嘢類型嘅問題啦，即係譬如話究竟你 percentage 咁你想考去 discount 啊定 sales tax 啊咁樣，咁佢叫你加啲嘢咁樣。咁佢最尾咧會有幾多問題問你，就係咧呢啲問題當你答完之後咧，佢會幫你 refine 翻個 prompt 嘅。咁若你睇下啲問題啦，就問其實你想問啲咩 percentage problems 啊？你想你個 answer key 究竟係要完整嘅 explanation 定係淨係個 final answers 啊？咁樣。咁當你答完呢個咧，佢會再重新做多次呢樣嘢俾你。呢一個咧，佢唔會直接出張 worksheet 俾你，佢要淨會不停咁樣 refine 你嘅 prompt。咁到你個 prompt 真係覺得，我都覺得好完整啦，你咪去試下用咯。咁用完之後呢個 prompt 好用喎，咁點啊？就可以 save 低佢，咁你留翻下次再用啦。即係譬如話下次再做嘅時候，我可能淨係改一改個topics，咁我已經可以做另一張 worksheet 咁樣啦。咁去到最尾啦，咁其實因為頭先都有講到，其實我哋依家即係 AI 可以幫我哋做嘅工作都好多啦。咁運算嘅題目，我哋係咪需要不停咁樣去再操啦？咁我哋嘅 assessment 有冇需要去再 fine tune 佢咧？定係還是我哋應該要讓學生去做一啲assessment 係同 problem solving 多少少 AI 冇咁容易處理得到嘅問題咧？另外咧就喺中學嘅課程嗰度啦，咁我哋就再諗下點樣可以將 AI 嘅 element 可以 embed 到入去啦，真係讓學生可以用到 AI 去自學咁樣。咁啊，另外就係喺教師方面啦，咁其實如果我哋有一個好嘅 prompt library，就係我哋好容易就可以出到啱啱嗰一啲 prompt，或者我哋將有用嘅 prompt 都 save 低佢，不論係 for admin 用又好，或者係你嘅作業嘅批改啊，甚至乎係我哋準備教材啊，咁呢啲都可以增加我哋老師嘅學習效能咁樣，老師嘅效能咁樣嘅，係啦。好，咁我嘅分享去到呢度，多謝晒大家。
Thank you. And any questions, comments, suggestions? Maybe I can answer the question. I'm just wondering, because you teach students in mathematics with AI, so are they allowed to use AI during examinations or?
No, they are not allowed to use AI in examination. We want to promote is to let them know how to use AI to extend their knowledge. So because we in secondary school we cannot teach everything because the teaching time is very limited. So what I want to do is to let them to make good use of AI to. For example, if that student is really talented, he wants more, then I can make a AI bot to let him try on some harder problem like this.
Thank you. Thank you. If no more questions, maybe we can end this presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
因為我要撳啊。連接。
Good afternoon. Welcome to this presentation. I'm Rachel from the Department of English and Communication. I'm a PhD student here. And for this session, we will have Xingnan and Zhang from mainland China. And the topic they will present is leveraging AI tools for enhanced language class preparation, a case of university L2 consecutive interpretation teaching. Let's give them a warm welcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Xingnan. This is my partner Zhang. I'm from Sanyang University and Zhang from Shantou University. Today, we're very glad to share with you how we use AI tools to prepare for the consecutive interpreting teaching. By consecutive interpreting teaching, that it means the interpreter listens to the speaker in one language and then produces the speech in another language. To teach this skill, it means that we need to teach the students a comprehensive package of skills, including active listening, memory and recall, note-taking, cultural and contextual awareness, public speaking, language conversion, and assessing methods. And the problems in preparing for interpreting course include there are 6 areas. The first is usually the textbooks are outdated. When it was published, it was a few years ago, even a decade ago. So it cannot match up to the social news and the scientific heat of the concurrent time. Therefore, there is deficiency in the material that we give to the students for practice. And secondly, even we can find the very much up-to-date audio or video from the internet, usually it is without transcript. So without transcript, students cannot do the self-assessment. And thirdly, sometimes we find a very interesting news, for example, the Ne Zha movie, and you want to give this information or material for students' practice. It is in a kind of textual report, so it's not appropriate for interpreting. By interpreting, we need the audio or video material. So how to transform the news genre into the material appropriate for students' practice? And fourthly, even AI can help us to transform into a dialogue. It is not audio or video. So how to make it into audio or video? And fifthly, even we have the materials for students, then you need to warm them up with the vocabulary and concept in the material, and then they can do with the dialogues of that material. So if you do the manual job of extracting the vocabulary one by one, it's really time consuming. And number 6 is we need to give students the keys and the references for their self-assessment, then how to use AI to provide these keys. So to solve these problems, AI can do us, first of all, give us the resources that we can find, the materials. And number 2, use AI to use the subtitle tools to generate the transcript for the students. And number 3, we can use the AI tools to compose the textual dialogue based on the news report. And number 4, we use the AI voice generator to make the textual material into the conversation. And then finally, we can use AI to do the pre-listening information vocabulary list for them, and then do the post-interpreting keys for them. So now I'm going to demonstrate how to use AI tools to solve the 6 problems one by one. Number 1, what kind of resources AI would suggest for the students' practice? Here, I use DeepSeek. Yes, this is how we may possibly use DeepSeek or maybe ChatGPT. We give them the prompt. For example, 我正在为 L2 students 设计口译课程，特别是教育、文化、经济、科技4大话题，请你提供一些相关的影视的资源给我们。So yes, this is what we can do, and we usually do this. And now let's see what the result it is. So for example, this is the list that AI provides us, and it's important, of course, we need to check one by one. And without AI, I may not have never known about the speech repository website. This is from the European Union interpreting database. So this, let's take this one as an example to see how we can find the appropriate material for students' practice. When we go to the website, it's important we input the keyword and then we specify the language or maybe the topic to the website, and then it will help us find and locate the material that is appropriate for our use. It's very important that we need to mind the length of the material and, for example, also the speed of the material. For example, I want some topic like gap years. And the students who are interested in knowing the differences between British university and the mainland university. For example, gap year is a topic up to the cultural topic. And so this is what we find from the European speech repository website and by the recommendation of the AI tool. And so I need to remind you that when we find material, we need to mind the language, the duration, and the topic. And so this is an example. I demonstrate how I use the AI tool to locate the material for students' practice. So let's watch a few seconds of the material it found. Sorry, because of I used my computer, so it cannot play the voice here to you. But yes. She said, "My name is Ali, and I'm here presenting you the differences between, say, the Chinese university and the British university about the gap year." Okay, so now the second thing is, if you notice the video was not attached with any subtitle, then there is a problem. Students cannot use any transcript to check whether their interpreting is good or not. So now let's see how to use the AI subtitle tool to generate a transcript for us. There are a few steps. Number one is we need to locate and identify the software for our use, subtitle edit, for example, and then we click the button and go to there. So here I'm going to demonstrate how we use one step by the other. This is the software by its logo, and we download from its website. We import video. We need to mind that we click the video button instead of the file button and open video file, and it will kind of upload the video into it. On the right up corner, we can see the video here. And the thing is, the AI tool is to automatically identify the voice into subtitle. So here, and how to get the subtitle from the audio of the video material. So yes, the third step, we need to click the video button and then to choose a language model, because some materials are Chinese, some materials are English. So you need to choose the appropriate language model, then it can identify the audio into the textual. So for example, I use the Vox model of the English language model, and we download the language engine, and then we click it, and so here is the process. It is generating the subtitle for us. It will take about a few seconds, depending on the length of your video. Then you will see. So this is the subtitle. It worked out. We need to export this subtitle file, and we need to mind the format, how we save it. We choose the FAB subtitle file format and save it into our computer. If you notice that the subtitle is also attached with the timing session and the point. So the next thing is, if you want the transcript, it is important that you need to clean up the timing. So for example, the time point from which second to which second. And the method is you just kind of feed the DeepSeek and tell it to clean this kind of timing sessions, and it will make it into a natural paragraph and passage for you. So this is how DeepSeek is working. Then finally, you will get a passage of the audio, the video material. And so this is how we get the transcript for the students. And then the third step is Sometimes we have the news genre, for example, usually the latest news, for example, let's take the Nezha movie as an example. You want to use this movie and the kind of news broadcast on this movie for students to practice, for them to know the latest trend of Chinese film industry and how to compose the textual material into the dialogue. So for example, I found this news report from China 文化中国 website. The topic is China's film sector seeks a breakthrough in high quality growth. And this is the news report. So how to transform this one into a dialogue, a conversation. So the task design, first of all, we need to compose a conversation based on the news. And then you need to design the converser, so who speak in the speech. For example, you want the one Chinese role and the one English role. And the students can practice interpreting, for example, a foreign student asking question, a Chinese expert answer question based on the information provided in the news. So this is the prompt I give to DeepSeek. Then for it to work out a dialogue for me. 我想要一个这样的一段对话。A 角色是国外的一个大学生 ，B 角色是中国的 expert。那基于这一段这个材料的内容，请你设计问题和答案，并且去specify how long it is for the conversation. For example, the question can be shorter, only 70 words, but the expert answer can be longer, 150 Chinese words. 这以下是新闻播报，把那个材料喂给他。So the key information is you need to tell DeepSeek or ChatGPT the task context. 你在做一个什么背景下面要一个什么任务 The topic is what, and the roles in the conversation, in the dialogue, and then the description of the conversation you want, the language, the length, the content, and tone expectation if you need. And so this is how DeepSeek is working out the conversation for me. And you can see very soon, and they work out the conversations. And you can select the one appropriate for your use. Sometimes it's too difficult or what, and you need to do some manual selection. So here, let's take this one as an example. This is what I chose for the students' practice. Student question, 学生问，他说，Professor, the news mentioned the innovation is crucial for Chinese cinema future, but how exactly is China fostering innovation in filmmaking? And the expert answered, 有一个例子，例如像是这个《流浪地球3》的副导演，他是怎么得到了这样的一个投资的 ？Okay, so let's take this conversation as an example you want to give for students interpreting practice. Then the fourth problem came, that is, you only have the textual material. You don't have the audio. So how to use AI to make it into the audio? And sometimes you don't only have the textual, but maybe it is only video. Then how to make it smaller into an audio for students' homework? You can upload to your cloud, and it's easier for students to download. So now here I'm going to demonstrate when you only have text or video, how to get the audio. So now first, how to convert the text into audio? I would like to use the TTS Maker. Have you ever heard of this software? Yes, okay. So how many of you have used the TTS Maker? Please raise your hand. One, okay, only one, thank you. So TTS Maker is an online tool. You choose the language model and test the speed and adjust it to appropriate and insert the pause if necessary. So here I'm going to demonstrate. For example, on the left-hand side, I input the textual material into it. You choose the language model, you choose English, for example, and then you can choose from scores of language model, the voice you like, and then to identify specify the speed. For example, you want it to slow down 90%, so you can put it kind of slow down the speed, and then you click this one, start conversion. It will take a few seconds and to make it into audio. Sorry for the computer thing that I cannot play out the voice for you. And here the AI is kind of generating it, kind of displaying it into the audio format. And then next, just now I demonstrated how to use the software, the TTS Maker to convert the textual material into audio. Now here I'm going to demonstrate how to extract the audio from the video. So this is the software I would use. This is called the Format Factory. In Chinese, it is 格式工厂. So how many of you have used the Format Factory? Please raise your hand. All right. 好，没有太多都是。好 So Format Factory is a very comprehensive software for you to edit the video and audio. First of all, of course, you need to download the installation pack. and install into your computer. And then to extract audio from a video, you need to click this button that is called 分离器. So this is demonstration. For example, I found a video broadcast, the news broadcast from the internet that is on Nezha News, Nezha movie. And so you can see when I click the 分离器, it will automatically help me to split the audio from the video. So this is the audio and this is the video. This is how. So here I intended to play to you, and this anchor woman was saying, 哪吒电影最近非常火爆，在市场啊突破了100亿市场的销售额。And so I extracted the audio from the video. So if I click the button, you will hear the news in audio form. All right. So next, sometimes you want a specific session from the material. For example, this one, in this news, there was 3 minutes length, and there was one foreign expert kind of making remark of his opinion about the hit of Nezha movie. And he is talking very professionally why Nezha was winning the foreign market. I just want this session, for example, then how I can kind of extract the specific session from it. I can use the previous step from transforming the video and kind of extracting the audio from it. But then next thing is, you need to cut a specific session of the audio from the 3 minutes total length of the original audio. So this is the software I used to do it. This is called the Gold Wave. Have you ever heard of this software? How many of you have used? Please raise your hand. Or maybe a similar one. There are a few editing software that they are similar like this. So let's see how to kind of cut a specific session from the total and the full length of the audio. So this is how we just first conveniently pull the file into the software. And then you need to identify which session you want. For example, I want from the 4 minutes 30 seconds to 4 minutes 38 seconds. Then I just need to cut this session from it. And the copy, paste it into a new file. And this is how I can get the audio. It's very convenient, just like the Word document. You kind of copy and Control+C, Control+V, and then you get the specific session of it. And sorry for the bug that I cannot play the audio to you. Okay. All right. So the next thing is you have the material ready, but the students, they don't know so much about this topic. You need to warm them up with the concept, with the new vocabulary in the material, how to do. So let my partner, Zhang introduce to you.
Thank you, Tasa, for your detailed introduction of the first 4 solutions for the previous identified problems. Now it's my turn to introduce another 2 solutions for you. Firstly, just as mentioned by Tasa just then, we need to prepare some pre-listening tasks for students to help them to get ready for the coming listening tasks. So here that's what we can do. For example, we could ask AI to generate the glossary for you. Okay, now, and for example, if we would like to ask students to finish these tasks, firstly, the objective would be that we would like to help students to get ready for the coming concepts, the potential concepts and the vocabulary to help them to be familiar with the concepts and relevant words, new words. Now, here, I like to give a prompt to the DeepSeek. For example, I like to ask the DeepSeek to identify the possible new vocabulary and provide glossaries based on the text we have provided. Okay, and then ask the DeepSeek to generate interactive exercises for the vocabulary access for the target vocabulary. For example, 1 sentence for 1 word, and it could be generated generated the codes, and that's something that we could download and operate it in class to help students to do the self-learning. For example, now let's have a look at this video. It shows that we are using the prompt like this. For example, 以下素材为大学外语口译素材，请 根据以下素材制作一个词汇表。OK， 如果原文是英文，则提供英汉词汇表；如果原文是中文，则提供汉英词汇表。And then followed with the relevant text. And after that, it generate the glossaries based on the text we have provided. Now let's have a look at this video. This would be the prompt and the glossaries generated based on it. And this would be two types of glossaries. And the second step, we asked the DeepSeek to generate codes which we could run immediately. And that's what we call interactive activity. For example, now I'm going to show you, and then give them this kind of prompt. It will generate the relevant codes. And here, that's something we call running. Okay, here would be a sample of the glossary exercises. Now I'm going to show you. You can have a look at it. Okay, this would be a sample for this interactive exercises based on the word bank, based on the glossaries DeepSeek identified before. Here would be a list of the words, the word bank, and then relevant vocabulary exercises. And the student can finish these tasks by themselves, and they can identify and check the answers automatically. Okay, now let's continue. Let's move on to the next part. And well, this would be a sample for the glossaries provided by the DeepSeek. And now let's move to the next tab. And here, I like to introduce the solution 6. And here, and you know, sometimes just like I have introduced the pre-listening tasks, and it's time that we do some post-interpreting tasks. For example, can we provide some references for students so the student can do the self-assessment? Okay, now what we can do, we could ask the AI to generate or to provide the keys and references for the interpretation tasks. And here, I'd like to use this text again. I'd like to use this text to ask AI to generate it. Here would be some key points for the DeepSeek prompt. Firstly, I will tell the DeepSeek you should incorporate original audios in the and then the key audios into an interactive page, and also provide the key text. Okay, now I'm going to show you. This would be the videos about how to generate it, and but sometimes we need to test it, and since the codings developed by the DeepSeek, sometimes it's not working. We need to generate the idea interactive page with multiple runs. We need to keep telling them and ask them to double check and revising the potential bugs. Okay, this would be a sample. Now I'd like to show you. Okay, that's it. And here, this would be the conclusions. Okay, the Tasa will take it over from here.
Thank you so much. So this is how we use the AI tools to prepare for consecutive interpreting teaching, that AI can help us solve these problems. The first is it can help us generate and provide the resources list for us so we can find the latest material for the students. Secondly, it can generate the transcripts from the video or audio to us. And if it is only the news genre in text, it can help us to compose the text conversation. And then TTS Maker can help us to generate the textual dialogue into audio. If sometimes we have the video, we can also use the format factory to extract the audio from the video. And we can use the gold wave to cut a specific session of the audio from the original full length. And finally, how to use DeepSeek to prepare students with the vocabulary and concept for the material. And finally, to use DeepSeek to generate the interactive HTML for them to do the reference and the checking. So thank you so much. Any questions?
Thank you for questions, suggestions, comments. If no more questions, I think we can move to the coffee break. We have 30 minutes for the coffee break, and the next session will start from 4 p.m. Thank you.
So hi, hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Oz. I'll be chairing this session. So we have 2 talks. And now, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to our first speaker, Dr. Wong, Nick Wong from Hong Kong USD. Thank you.
Thank you, Ox. So allow me to very quickly just recite the title today, which is Can GenAI Expand Students' Translating Space for More Critical and Creative Practices? So just let me very quickly tell you how I'm going to structure this very short presentation today. First of all, I think I know this is an issue that I don't really need to explain, but first of all, I'm just going to really still talk about the issues, even though without that, you can still guess what are the issues of using GenAI in English language teaching. Then I know that some of you may not be quite familiar because there are actually many ways that you can approach these issues these days. Well, what I'm approaching is from a translanguaging perspective, using translanguaging pedagogy as the way to how we see whether it's effective or not. And then I'm going to show you, because this is actually a research-informed teaching project, which I will be showing you the exact deliverable and how I have been implemented in my own classroom with the results and discussion. And at the end, I'm going to show you what my key message would be. So this is how I'm going to talk about that. The very quick thing that I think, even though I really want to skip it, but it doesn't make quite good sense, allow me to just talk about that. Recent study of the use of GenAI in language educations. Actually, even without explaining about that, we know that there has been, because just like today's conference, the whole conference is about the use of AI in education and different aspects. And of course, not just education has been an issue. We've also been discussing whether we have like ethical use of AI and these things over here. We also see, I don't know how many of you are actually maybe primary or secondary school teachers. I myself is teaching tertiary language classes in university. So basically, my students do also show very strong enthusiasm in using the GenAI because basically one simple click, they can generate a whole essay. And as a language instructor, all we've been asking students to do is just to write maybe a 1,000-word essays, one click, and pretty much that is already a passing grade that they can already get. And of course, teachers like us would then feel very worried because in that case, what am I actually assessing? Am I assessing like students' ability of clicking, or is it we are still assessing student intended learning outcome? So we do see the academic integrity issues over here. And there are also a lot of talk today that talk about we do need some kind of AI literacies that perhaps we need to teach students on many different aspects. And the interesting things, if you try to listen to these things today, is we don't really have very much consensus on what exactly it is as well. But today I'm not going to talk much about that. Of course, there are also some students, which perhaps teachers like us would say, some good students would say, I feel reluctant to use GenAI because what if I use GenAI, will I get caught? Sometimes some students would actually ask us like, will we actually get caught if we see some kind of AI index on Turnitin? So something like that also show that if they use GenAI, will there be some kind of penalties over here? Still, we do know that just like many of the presentations today has already shown us that there are actually many positive feedbacks that we can get by using GenAI, because by using chatbot, we can feed in and then we can get lots of feedbacks over here. We also see that there are certain development on language skills as well. Of course, one of the issues is about, will that actually affect whether we can creatively write something? Because one thing that we seem to see is GenAI seems to be like generalizing or maybe showing us the most common pattern that we see. So all these things actually make a very quick summaries saying that actually GenAI and language education is a very complex issues that we see over here. And I think we do really need, I think no matter which talk that you're going to today, a balanced approach that allowed me to use the word that you normally would see in GenAI output, harness AI's benefit while addressing its challenges. So this is how and why I wanted to start the project over here. My question in my head is, can GenAI expand students' translanguaging spaces for more critical and creative practices? And again, as I said at the beginning, I know some of you may not be quite familiar with the idea of translanguaging, so allow me to just very quickly talk about that. So translanguaging pedagogy in here is to talk about the pedagogy that encourages the use of students' full unitary repertoire in meaning-making process for effective communications. I know some of you may have heard of translanguaging from other kind of thing, maybe something similar like a mixing code with Chinese and English. But in here, I'm just like to try to help you to understand that. Actually, it's not just about that. It could be, but it's not just about that. It could also be like including like using different modes to make communications over here. Of course, Jennifer is one of the experts over here. Unfortunately, she's not here. And then another example that I just like to show you so that you can help to understand what exactly it means by translanguaging pedagogy that is not just about mixing languages over here. An example that I like to cite is from Susanne learned from CHK. She conducted a study in Hong Kong kindergarten with 88 students with diverse backgrounds. So simply put, because they are kindergarten young kids, you can think about that. So her study was done during a free play drawing activity where she asked students to try to express themselves through two ways, writing. But of course, you know, kids that young can't really even hold pen. So the way that she did was to try to use some immersive writing plus drawing to help the students to express their own message that they hope to express. So in this case, we can see that this is how the students manage to use more than one mode together for achieving effective communication. So this is, first of all, just a very quick idea of what I see translanguaging pedagogies, because again, it's not exactly the same as pedagogical translanguaging as like Yasone, Senos, or the others would have proposed over here. So it's about strategic use of multiple modes provided alternative channel for expressing thoughts and achieving, again, the key thing that I like to emphasize is effective communications. Leeway also talked about one very key important thing when it comes to no matter doing translanguaging or translanguaging pedagogy research, is that there has been one kind of concept that he conceptualized it as called translanguaging space. Translanguaging space is the space for the act of translanguaging as well as the space created through translanguaging. So simply put is when we try to make sense or make meaning, we are actually make use of many different elements. As we say, we are actually trying to get different elements, maybe our history, our experience, the environment over here, belief ideology together to make the meaning. And allow me to just use a very quick picture to illustrate the idea over here. The reason why you and I will understand each other, first of all, of course, because I speak English and you understand English, of course. So that means you and I both have some kind of similar elements that we share together. That's why you have the overlapping area. But then whether we understand people more or less, depending whether we have more or less overlapping over here. That's why you see that at the very beginning, because I understand that this conference would have also a number of teachers, perhaps frontline teachers that may not have heard of or understand about that. So it's important for me to explain more so that we have more overlapping, more understanding over here. So this is how, when we see we have more overlapping, we actually will understand each other over here. So this is the resources that we have over here. You can imagine it's like a kitchen table. We want to have the ingredients to cook for the dish, and then I want to give it to you as well. So this is the idea of how we visualize these ideas when it comes to understanding translanguaging space. One thing that I like to explain is that when there is overlapping, of course, there are things that we don't really understand. So it's also possible that there will be a moment, sometimes, you don't really know what I'm talking about. Just like the theoretical concept right now, maybe it's too difficult for you. So that's why you don't really know what I'm talking about. So this is the moment that we talk about is maybe you don't have the resources, you don't have the academic knowledge, you don't have the understanding of that theory. That's why, or maybe you are not from the field of applied linguistics. So that's why you may not understand about that. So that's why this is not an effective communications over here. And maybe if we can still communicate, if there is some possibility that I might be substituting something or adding something over here that hopefully that can make you understand more. So this is what I like to say is there might be able to communicate if and only if in now, like right now, if you still don't understand what I'm trying to say, if I can provide you with some more hints or some more things that may facilitate your thinking, this kind of thing may become the critical elements for substituting the absence of something over here. So the whole philosophical idea, how I'm trying to explain is based on this logic over here. And perhaps my questions going back to the key questions today. One of the things that we have been thinking is, can we use GenAI to help us to make these communications better? Because if translanguaging is about effective communications, can we use GenAI when there's an absence of some resources to help us to make better sense or help me to explain to you better? So this is the whole idea over here. The methodology is quite a typical one. It's an ethnographic case study. It's ethnographic because it's also relying on quite a lot of subjective interpretation as me as a teacher as well, because I've been teaching the course that I'm trying over here for around 7 to 8 years, even though they are not the same cohort, but I quite know what exactly the student has been doing over here. In particular, I've been collecting students' data in the past 2 years, in 2024 and 25. I use some data collections to like questionnaire to help me to understand about the open-end, the qualitative answers from the open-ended answers, my observations, and also I do interviews after that. And then I try to analyze it. To give you an idea about the student size is around 44 students in total with 2 cohorts. 2024, there are around 20 students. 2025, there are around 24 students. They are all final year students that they need to write their FYP, the final year project, before they graduate. So this is the course that they're taking over here. And these group of students, they are all the business students majoring in risk management and business intelligence. I need to highlight this because this is actually quite an interesting program, because I don't know how many of you know what this program is about, as some of your students might have entered this program, perhaps. This program is actually about, if you ask me, most of the FYP projects, using AI to help them to find the best stock that they can do investments, or maybe using different machine learning or deep learning models to help them to make different kind of predictions on Ethereum or many other things. Many of the projects are related to these things. So what does that mean is that this group of students are actually very familiar with the idea of AI before we know what ChatGPT is. So knowing that, what I've been doing, because I've been teaching a course, which I would say is a workshop, because I only meet with the students once a month, not every week, not every day, but maybe once a month only. So in here, during the workshops, I show them a short video, which I'd like to show to you very quickly. The video is actually taken from one of the other project, which I was working with another colleague, which is have a very fancy name, which is called Art AI, which is just called Advanced Research Training. But allow me just to show the exact video, and I'm going to tell you where did I use this video later on. Because the video is a little bit long for 4 minutes, I just like to show the students did watch all 4 minutes video, but what I like to show you as whether we can actually help students to think critically and creatively. I like to start by the middle part and to show you what the student would have watched. The very first part is just to show them that different kind of chatbots, and then how they should try to upload documents to help and understand what the document is about. But this is the moment that I like to start to have your attention over here. So the next step is about teaching students how to do critical evaluations. So the students were asked to watch this video, and then they need to do a small task.
That now there's a list of possible angles in the video. This is the moment where you need to pay attention to integrating what you have learned and select the most plausible and relevant answers. Let's say you have identified this point. You can simply copy and paste the point and begin another prompt by asking. And paste the point. The further elaboration sometimes will give you some further insight. You can then make your speculation and ask Kwan and see if it makes sense. If you are uncertain about some terminology, you can also ask Kwan what it means as defined in the article.
So basically, this is the short video that student has exactly watched. It's just around 4 minutes long. And the task instruction was pretty much like this. So first of all, before I start the class at the beginning of the lesson, I give them a questionnaire by giving them anonymous identifiers that I won't be knowing who exactly they are, but each of them get a number. So you're number 1, number 2, number 3, and then they need to fill in a questionnaire with open-ended questions and some questions to rate how much knowledge that they think they currently have, a self-reported numbers from 1 to 10 about their knowledge on AI and their confidence on using AI. And then I play the video that you just see and ask them to do one same thing, following exactly same step, except that they use their interim report, their half-baked final report, put it into the chatbot and do the exact same step that I've demonstrated in the video. And right after they did all the steps, I didn't start teaching, but I just immediately give them another questionnaire again, just to ask them to write down what they think about that. After that, because this was done around February, and then I didn't have another workshops just for information around March, because that would be around the time that they need to build and do the data analysis. So the very last time that I see them was already in April, and we didn't cover anything related to chatbot because it was preparing for the final presentation. So it was, the last workshop was just about presentations preparations. And then they gave a presentations in the first week of May. And then right after they did their presentations for their graduation project, I did an interview with each of the project group, that if they allowed me to, because again, it's based on consent. So this, I managed to get 6 groups to do the interview right after that. So one quick thing I just like to show you is, no matter I look at the 2024, 2025 data, it shows that right after they look at the 4 minutes video and implements the step-by-step steps that I suggested in the video, with the only substitutions that instead of using any journal articles, they use their halfly baked interim report. Many of them find that their knowledge has an improvement over here. While 95%, that means 90 out of 20 improved their knowledge from that. One say didn't change. Another is the same as with 16 out of 24, with one that has a decreasing trend while the most others are increasing, with 6 that is with no change. So I did want to know whether this is actually a significant test over here. So I did a Wilkinson sign range test to see whether this is actually highly significant. And the result is, when I look at it separately or in combinations, the result is significant. So this is, first of all, one thing that I'd just like to show you. Of course, there is one thing that you might have noticed, if I need to speculate, is why we see there are only less improvement in 2025. Perhaps it's because students are more aware of how they use the GenAI tools, because this videos has been made in 2023. So it was actually a little bit dated, that even if I try to reuse it again, because I didn't change a single word or content. So you can see it's being still introducing Claude, but not Claude 4 these days. So, but the mechanism is the same. So because the open-ended questions right after the workshops, I also collected some of the possible responses over here. So students actually recognize that the GenAI has the potential to help them generate different perspectives. When I say different perspective, is that I think many of us would have sometimes have similar issues, that we often know what the answer is, but we might not be able to generate other possible answers because we are so into one possible one. So this is one way that to help students to generate alternative perspectives that we can see, that sometimes they may not be able to think about, that even they have all these possibilities in their head, but now being reminded by AI. Students also feel that they can even generate it, they can critically evaluate the output. So that means when they make a judgment, they know immediately by the gut feeling that I know what this is, I know this maybe yes, this maybe no, over here. So there are also other possible topics that you can see, like analyzing strengths and weaknesses, evaluating own work, potentially generate new solutions, perspectives, and allow me not to just read all of them, because I do have other things that actually will correspond to these answers over here. But just one thing that you may have noticed is that these are just all skill related, but nothing is really about, they did learn something new, like a textbook or content knowledge over here, which I'm going to come back to this point that I'm going to say later on. Another thing that I like to show you is the interview that I did right after the final presentations outside the classroom. And then I did and asked them how they feel, because again, as I've said, I've only teach them how to use GenAI on one of the workshops, which is in February. And then later on, I didn't have any chance to see with them until in April. And even in April, I didn't manage to cover anything related to that. So these are actually something that right after I teach them, these are something that they can been still using that. So now you can see they would say something like, so I'd like to say that GenAI has actually helped me to think and turn my bullet points into coherent paragraphs to see something about supporting organizations. Of course, you can also see like the main thing is generally very well in summarizing some of the lengthy research paper and help to organize it. So this is, again, one of the skills that I've shown in the video over here. Language enhancement, which is also about polishing language over here. But other thing that you can see is like GenAI is a great tool for me to search for some academic stuff, because they always search some terminology by using GenAI and can improve a really comprehensive like definitions or terminologies over here. And then you can also see this is now the point that is being covered by the original videos over here, is that GenAI could provide you with another point of view by research. And you can, for example, give him the report written by me. So this is the exact step that I asked them to do during the implementations in February, and then ask it whether there are some limitations or other things. They can also help them to review the report objectively, because sometimes the reports are written by themselves and there are something that they have been missing. So this is something like a reminder process over here. So I think the first one that popped up in my mind is like questioning skills, like you can use and ask the GenAI to obtain the answers that you want. So in here, that these are something that you can see, we still see after I teach them some of the elements with a 4-minute short videos with a small task, then we didn't really go through any of these GenAI related topics anymore in February. There's still some retaining of these kind of skill sets over here. So going back to a very quick summary of some of the qualitative answers that we get over here, right before the workshops that we see, maybe sometimes they don't have the ability to really fully understand all different kind of perspectives. So when they try to interact with AI before that, they were just really using basic AI interactions. For example, when I talk to the students, some students would have just been using ChatGPT, or maybe when they use Poll, they just use the assistant, which they don't even bother to think about the differences. Or maybe today, I don't know how many of you are actually subscribers of CSL. You know, recently they have been giving free accounts of Perplexity. Some of you may be just using the search functions using the default model, but noticing that there are actually many different models that can do different kind of reasoning. So that's one thing that, first of all, many students in 2024 and 2025 just use the default chatbot without really thinking the difference, first of all. So you can see the awareness is a bit low. And then when they solve the problem, they tend to not to see how do they solve it in a strategic way. But then after I show them just a very short video, the step-by-step, to show them one example, how do we strategically interrogate the chatbots to do that, we can see they start to have critical evaluations on possible different answers over here. So at the end, we also see that there is retainment on advanced and more different kind of questionings that we see from the 3 months post period, because we didn't really talk about that compared to what they have been doing before the workshops and after that. So some very quick discussion is that we can see that GenAI has definitely do something when it comes to interrogations, when it comes to providing more effective communication within the students and their own essays. But one thing that I just like to point out is that it's still very important when the students, if they want to know whether this is a good suggestion or not, it's important to have the domain knowledge and past experience of that. Because like one of the students has said, for creativity, I think we still need to use our own mindsets and then like based on what we provide on a theoretical base, and then we give the credibility. So that means is that the students are very aware that they need to add some extra things to help them to make the judgment over here. And then the GenAI, of course, can provide them with another point of view and ask there were other limitations over here. But then, if the results is not consistent with the expected finding, they will either try to ask it again to see whether it is possible, or dig deeper, or sometimes if the answer is not what they expected, they might just don't do it. So this thing actually requires quite strong of their domain knowledge over here. But one last slide, two last slide actually. So what I just like to, first of all, going back to the discussions and also the tables that we just talked about is that GenAI actually does not create new resources within the translation space. So what does it mean is that you didn't really get something new. It's rather through GenAI, you are reminded that there are some other possibilities. So GenAI in here is pretty much like a facilitator than more like just a knowledge giver over here, because students are skeptical when there are knowledge conflicting with that. So the conclusion is domain knowledge is still very important. And I think that the key thing is when we want to know that AI did have some knowledge outside of students, it's important for students to have, first of all, their own domain knowledge to understand what the AI may possibly have. But at the same time, they also need to have some kind of technical skills to be able to elicit possible AI knowledge through the chatbots, or maybe they need the technical skills to really understand their own domain knowledge as well. So just one last message. I think rather than viewing GenAI as simply beneficial or detrimental, these students are actually actively negotiating its place in academic work, developing skills and critical assessment that may be optimally serve them well in rapid evolving technological landscapes. And there is actually no point to really chase the teach and chase how do we use different tools over here, because it's difficult to really keep chasing and teach students all these new tools and new things, because as we all can change, AI can be better. But what is inevitable that we want to make the students know is that we have to co-live with it. And we definitely need to know how do we need to constantly be flexible in dealing with these issues over here. So that's all for the presentation. Thank you very much. Sorry.
So I'll be helping with Q&A. If you have any questions, we have around 2-3 minutes for the questions. Any questions for Dr. Wong? So maybe I can just ask a question, Dr. Wong. You told that you wouldn't have some time for explaining what your students did multimodally, in terms of multimodal use before and after workshop. Maybe you can use these 2 minutes to maybe elaborate on it.
Because one of the other things that I've also noticed is during the consultation, sometimes I see that they have already been using the visuals data that to help to do the analysis as well. Because one of the things that you might know is that you can actually put tables, put figures, and other thing into the chatbot, and then to do the same thing over here. Because right now what I'm just showing is mainly based on the written text that we try to find the possible strength and weaknesses that we see. But at the same time, because the student noticed that they can do it with written text. So when I observe the actual interaction that is shown me during the consultation, they begin to move beyond and also use other possible means, but using the same big logic over here. Because if the chatbot can accept text and other multimodal means, then that means they can also potentially know about that. But of course, they would need to know what are the possible limitations of that. And that goes back to whether they have the technical knowledge to really understand whether the AI can generate the output or not. So that's hopefully can answer that. And again, thank you very much for everyone.
Thank you. Have 2 minutes.
All right, sure.
Do you have your PowerPoint or?
Yeah. I am using Canva.
What?
Yeah, this one.
This one, right? Yeah. Oh. There are 5 minutes for the student assistant.
Yeah.
So before your 5 minutes before your agent, I will let you know.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
That's fine. That's fine.
This one, yeah, but I haven't pressed the sharing button, so probably I have to. No. This present. It will be showing the full screen.
Okay, just a note. So hello everyone. I'm Özgehan Uştuk, and I'm with my colleague here, Chun Tse Logan. And just, for the acknowledgements and to do them in a just way, this study is based on Logan's classroom-based practitioner inquiry. It's quite teacher-led. So I'll give the floor to my colleague now to present his action research. Thank you.
Okay, so good afternoon. So before I start my presentation, I just have a very quick question. So how many of you here are like frontline secondary school Hong Kong teachers? Can you raise your hand? Okay, quite a right number of you. Thank you very much. So today I'm just going to talk about, I'm actually trying to explore like the effect of AI assistant tools on Hong Kong ESL students. So it's a secondary students-based writing competence and enjoyment. So today, before I start, I will give a little bit of agenda overview. Generally speaking, it's not an academic presentation, but because I'm here in front of you, I try to be slightly academic, okay? So this is what we call action research cycle. So probably you might have heard it if during like PGDE or BEd program. So today, I'm using the model by Dick van Dakburg from 1990. So actually, there are quite a number of acronyms. So, but today, the one I'm using is called PTOR. So it's plan, teach, observe, and reflections. So there are 4 steps, okay? So you can also do it in your school as well. So before I get started, I just want to share with you why did I plan to conduct this research. So nowadays, if you have read a newspaper or any online articles, you probably will be amazed by the amount of information about how AI helps students. So especially when my students, so I'm teaching Form 6 this year, so you can imagine why I do have the time to conduct an action research. So they have been using AI to do their assignment quite a lot. So also inspired by Wu DJ, he's also an English teacher in Hong Kong, in teaching, I think in Hong Kong, on Hong Kong Island. So to see if generative AI tools can enhance learning in EFL classroom. So when I was reading some kind of studies online, actually the level of tertiary higher education, they often highlight the advantages of how generative AI tools, probably like Grammarly, ChatGPT, and DeepSeek quite recently, can benefit students' informative assessment and giving feedback. So if you like a recent graduate from university, probably you have subscribed to Grammarly to help you proofread your text. But in terms of secondary school context, it's quite limited. So that's the reason why I conduct this action research. So in the planning level, so I'm doing a letter of advice with my former students. So this action research aims to investigate how writing performance and enjoyment of the students. What I'm going to highlight is the enjoyment affected by using different tools. So it's a very authentic kind of research based on 2 different performance groups. So in our school, we didn't have the all class, they were being equally distributed according to the scores they have attained in HKAT, Hong Kong Attainment Test. So and also about how generative AI tools can integrate sustainably in the teacher's professional practice. So in the long run, how are we as a Hong Kong English secondary school teachers are going to embed with AI teaching? So because it's a very pilot research I was conducting this year, so I was only using qualitative methods. So the first thing I'm using is face-to-face interviews I conducted after school from 2 different groups.
one will be using Lingo Task. So it's an education geared AI tools, probably used by quite a number of Hong Kong secondary schools because they were funded by the QEF. And another group, they were using DeepSeek. So they were being asked with 3 major questions, but of course, I'm going to ask some follow-up questions after they have given me any kind of feedback. So for some of those, they were answered in Cantonese, so you can see some Chinese characters later on. I transcribed them into English because you can imagine, like, even in my school, I'm in an EMI local school, Form 1 students, they have a very limited English proficiency. So the questions majorly is about emotions, so it's about enjoyment, and about overall writing performance. So also I'm using exit ticket here after first and second lessons. So I'm going to ask context-based evaluation questions. So exit ticket is kind of a very good method for you to evaluate your students' performance and also what they have learned in class. So also 1 question each to evaluate their enjoyment. And I also find my colleagues and thank you for their contribution. And I also give them a lunch. So 5 copies will be selected from each class. So that means a total of 10 were selected. And then they were marked by 2 other English teachers. They were not in the research using the TSA marking scale. So there will be 4 hours of English writing module in total. So 3 triple lessons, 1 lesson will be around 40 minutes. So students have gone through 2 texts about bullying and giving advice. So it was from the textbook. And then 2 major activities here will be examined, will be go through as kind of indicators to show you the result. So the first one is a very summarized and kind of activities, a guided task, what we call. So it's about a problem written by a fictional character called Derek. He doesn't know how to do his mathematical homework, so he's facing this kind of problem. So as the student, they have to give some advice to Derek. So this is a very guided task. The second one is a creativity task. So they have to write a problem of their own, and then they have to share it with their neighbor. And their neighbor can use any kind of AI tools, what we're going to mention later on, to look for some kind of information and then give their neighbors and classmates feedback. So this is the first task. You can take a look. So Derek is facing a problem. Here's the missing part, mathematics problem. So you need to summarize the problems mentioned in the text. And then, students, they have to give advice to Derek. So the second task is a creative task. So you need to create a problem. It involves creativity. And then summarize the issues mentioned because you don't know what your neighbor was going to mention. And then give proper advice with sympathetic and supportive tone. So you want to be kind to your classmates, right? So in the following PowerPoint slides, I'm going to use this logo over here. I hope that you can see that to represent that group. So with these blue whales, it is representing DeepSeek because it's DeepSeek logo. And later on, there will be like a blue book, okay? It's a Lingo Task logo. So first of all, for DeepSeek, I would say that when they're doing the guided pre-task, the one about Derek, they would tend to copy all the information directly from the text. They will in-type, and then they will simply show it to the AI. Of course, probably if you have going through some of other seminars or workshops conducted today, usually AI will give some kind of big words, very high-level linguistic and semantic kind of text. So, and then what the students would do, they will throw it to the Google Translate. Okay, give them Chinese. And then they will basically answer the text, give me the answer based on the vocab that be obtained from the generative AI. So these are some big words for some Form 1 students. And remember, these tags over here are actually typed out, is from quite an average and weak students. So usually he couldn't write this kind of text. So, and also, he didn't show a very clear audience awareness because using he, you are now writing to Derek, you should use you, okay? Or, I'm giving some advice to you, okay? So, but not using he. So for lingual task, yeah, this logo over here. So because lingual task cannot generate some kind of ideas, it's just giving you some kind of suggestion vocabulary and also suggestion questions. So students, they will have quite a lot of grammatical mistakes. However, more authentic and fitted language will be used in the text. And also every student, they will benefit from this suggestion vocabulary by the system. But there is one problem, is the self-correction in OCR, the optical character recognitions. Because most of the students, they will scan the text using the camera function. And the system will automatically correct those mistakes. That's not something that we as language teachers that we want the system to help us to do. So that may make students confused because some of my students said that, okay, actually I was making mistakes here, why the system was trying to help me correct it. So for the creative task, again, this is from the handwriting and the length of the text. You probably know he was not very that proficient in English. So his classmate told him that he was not happy with his appearance, so he was very unhappy. But you can read the suggestion here. You can change some small effort, increasing self-care, like adjusting some daily habits. Sounds kind of irrelevant and indirect. So that's the problem that often being given by the generative AI when students have very limited language ability. That means even the system, the generative AI like ChatGPT or DeepSeek, the system can't understand what the student is saying. So in that case, the system can only give some suggestions that is not too sensible and indirect for young learners. So because they can't trigger the proper response that we are looking for. However, for linguistic tasks like education geared AI, because they don't have a checkbox device function in this app, so the student was actually giving advice based on his or her own suggestions. So you can see that quite a number of grammatical mistakes. The system is helping them to change the modal verbs and or change the adverb. So in that case, students can learn some kind of better language from the app. But however, the lab can't give any kind of suggestions or some kind of ideas because for lingual task, teacher has to input all those, have to choose all those suggestions in advance. But as a teacher, I couldn't know what the students are going to write during the class because it's the creative task. So for reflection on a qualitative level, so most of the students, they when they were using lingual tasks, they actually find it quite neutral. So of course, there's still 9 positive emotion feedback. So I kind of clarify that by using some kind of positive adjectives. So enjoyable, better way of writing. So you can see they improve my writing. That's some words that I'm looking for over here. But sometimes when they were talking about giving solutions to classmates, share my book with with others, those are related to task design. Those are something that I'm going to mention later. That was actually echoing with the sharing that Professor Lee had this morning. It was like the generative AI is not magic, but it only functions as a language facilitator, and task design does matter. So, however, for DeepSeek, kind of surprised me is like because students find it able to search solution, correct suggestions, or use AI to write my writing. They find it quite positive. Well, to a certain sense, I didn't go deeper on why it was that positive, but I would kind of summarize that as functionalized as search engine or proofreader. So for this kind of students, I think they probably use it just like how they use Google, but it's much easier way because they don't have to go through all the websites. They just have to copy the answer directly from the AI. So thanks for my colleagues again. M1 is marker 1, M2 is marker 2, two different markers. In terms of the final result, there's no big difference in regards of the two used. So education gear, lingo task here, provide a much more language suitable suggestions. So most of the copies from lingo tasks usually get a slightly better mark in language. For DeepSeek, some of my colleagues actually suggested that those words are too big for former students. So the first question that I would like to ask is, do your students really benefit from these tools? So first of all, I want to make sure that most students, they find it very enjoyable. They really enjoy the task. The first reason is because the ability to give good words and phrases directly from the Cantonese translation of 好詞好句, and which helps them get a higher grade in the examination. So Hong Kong students tend to be examination oriented. And also, even for some bright students, they will say that it helps them kickstart some new ideas. Because even for some of the students, they believe that the text generated by the AI was even better than them. Okay, so this is the Cantonese phrase that she used. So both exit tickets and interviews show that students enjoy a combination of AI usage and discussion. That's why I mentioned that task design does matter. So actually for former students, they really enjoy having a discussion or classroom activity with other students, a much more student-centered classroom. That was something that they are looking for. So if you're just simply giving the tablet to the students and asking them to, now you should use the tablet and go and talk with the AI, it probably doesn't make them much more interested in writing. So they find it much more interested by talking to their classmates and enjoying actually laughing at their classmates, and some little gifts always do a trick. So the second one is actually quite amazed me, to be honest, because the generation now, what we are calling them digital natives. You will go through some sociological papers. So from AIinLT from 2024, actually we often believe that younger generations, they are digital natives, so they have higher digital literacy. Well, it sounds that's the case to us, because they every day after school we can notice that they are using Instagram, they are using not Facebook nowadays, what they are using. But however, actually students, even who have given their login information, finding difficulties using both AI platforms. So you can imagine that I'm facing 33 students in the class, and then they are all yelling for support. Okay, so I can't log into my account. What should I do? And you are being so busy walking around. So, however, students, their performance were getting improved after several lessons. But those who have daily interaction with artificial intelligence, those who claim that they have used DeepSeek in a daily manner, they actually can execute starkly different. That means they can perform much more better for students who have lower digital literacy. That will be something related to the page I'm going to mention. So for the school and the teacher, I think if you're working in a local publicly funded government subsidy schools, you have difficulties locating some kind of resources because, well, now the budget is getting cut, so I think it will be much more difficult. So the BYOD policy was actually promoted by the EDB starting from 2015 and 16. But according to a survey conducted by the Legislative Council in 2020, so during the pandemic, only 32% of the primary and secondary school have participated in the Community Care Fund program to support their students to purchase their own devices. So most of the students nowadays, they are still related on iPad car. Okay, I don't know how many iPad car you have in your school. In my school, there are only 4 iPad cars. In order to conduct this action research, I try to reserve it around 1 to 2 months earlier. Okay, so I got my iPad on that day. So time was also taken for them to return and collect their iPad. And for former students, you can imagine how difficult they will be to collect those iPads. So the final page is about digital literacy. So do your students really know how to ask a proper question with a good prompt? So asking a good prompt is very important when you're using an AI. So over here, give a suggestion for academic stress and strict parents is a very good prompt because it's written by much more brighter students. It summarizes those ideas in the text and also in just phrases, noun phrases. So the AI can give some kind of suggestion. Of course, she didn't mention that, okay, you should write it for a former student, okay? But I taught them in class to do so. But for this student, he did mention like polish the structure for a former student, but he simply asked, what can I do? Okay? Very like a former student, okay? So, weaker students, they often just type the original sentence, just like what I've mentioned earlier, and ask AI to help them to solve the problems. So also some students in my class told me that those suggestions sometimes are quite inhuman and not too sensible. 唔太似個人啊, okay? So that would be something that we can look into later on. So thank you very much. I've leave some time for the Q&A session.
Thank you. Keep that, and I'll
okay.
use this. If you have any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned that the GenAI helps to provide some good words for students to do their writing, but we as the English teachers always have the difficulties of expanding our students' vocabulary. So can you share how from your finding, how to expand the students' vocabulary by or with the help of GenAI so that they can face the real challenge in the paper and pen assessment?
Okay, so thank you very much for your question. So first of all, I will ask them to, usually they will know how to say, okay, can you give me synchronyms on this word? And then the generative AI will generate some good text for them. Usually, actually, from this research, we can see that the result was actually quite good because in TSA, the full mark is 12. And most of them got around, for those much more looser marker, gave him or her 10. Even for the stricter marker, gave him or her 8. That's actually quite a good result in TSA. So actually in my research as well, most of the students, they were able to use those good words in their own assignment, but they're finding the difficulty to use it in the examination. It's the reason that when we're talking about vocabulary acquisition or learning, recent papers have demonstrated that how these kind of generative AI devices can help them in an intermediate way, that means in the short term. In the long term, actually, I find it's quite difficult for them to memorize the vocabulary items they have used in the in their daily assignment. So they can't recall those memory they have used in their assignment. So in that case, what I would suggest is not something that I conducted in this research because it's a much more intermediate. I conducted it in May and June. It's based on one module, so you can imagine the time length is around 2 to 3 months. So it's a very pilot research. And but later on, I was trying to look into how it can help with longer term vocabulary to expand their vocabulary bank. So I think even for the academia, they are also now doing this kind of research. Yes, thank you.
I'm Joseph. I'm currently a primary school student, teacher, and I would like to ask, first of all, the first question is it tolerable or say acceptable to use Google Translation in in-class activities? And my second question is that while in the writing class, we try to enhance our students' creativity. So how the AI tools can really help students create their own writing, and it would consider whether the originality of the work is from their is it their thinking or what their ideas about. So this is my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really like your second question. Actually, I asked some of my students in my interview, but I didn't show it out. So start with the first question about Google Translation. To be honest, if you're giving your students iPad, it is unavoidable. Okay, because we have so many cross-border students nowadays, because my school is located in Tumun, so you can imagine. So of course, for the school policy level, it is intolerable. Okay, we can't allow them to use it. But when I was just turning my back to my students, they would start using Baidu Translate, Google Translate. To be honest, I can't deal with it. So for the second questions, it was about the kind of originality of the work. So, so first of all, generative AI can, let's just go with DeepSeek, because that one is generative AI, another one is like education geared. It can give them many ideas, because letter of advice, to be honest, is quite personal. Is A to A kind of letter, informal letter. It can give them some kind of advice about like personal suggestions about the problems. So for example, we have a student about, I can't go back to that. Anyway, so if you remember that such student say that, okay, he didn't find himself very handsome, then, well, generative AI can generate some kind of ideas for that. Because sometimes, even from our former students, it was kind of difficult to manage these kind of questions. And for some kind of school bullying and academic problem, the usual answer for the student is go to find your teacher, go to find your parents. That's it. So for generative AI, it gives them much more dimension kind of answers. That's something that I think it will be good. But however, about the originality of that in that kind of level of problems, some bright students, let me clarify, bright students, they will say that they can make the decision by looking if the answer fit them. However, for weaker students, because they have a lower English proficiency, even for the suggestions, they will always accept the answers. I think if for Hong Kong English teachers, we'll find your students, especially former students, they were just always nodding their heads. They never dare to challenge the teacher. Okay. Once my student challenged me on a grammar question, I was teaching some grammar items. I feel very warm in my heart, to be honest. Yeah. Yes, they're not being told to challenge. So, and with the AI, actually, I think it needs to be kind of be, for weaker students, you need to be a little bit worried about that. But for bright students, when they say, okay, they know how to make the decision, I think that would be good. But if you go back, okay, on the contrary side, if you go back to recent studies published by the Microsoft and also MIT, it was being on thread and online on some forums quite recently. They kind of state that for students who are using generative AI quite in an often way, their brain activity actually got reduced in terms of and affect their critical thinking and creativity. But that's something that I would say that for this AI field is still very new, no matter in secondary school context or higher education context. Thank you.
Maybe one last very quick question, if there's any. Okay, so thank you. Oh, okay.
Because my school also uses LingoTask, so I'm wondering, like, which platform do you think is more user-friendly for teachers and students? So which platform would you recommend, or maybe like, what are your thoughts on these different platforms?
Okay, it's not a short. So starting with, okay, teacher, to be honest, LingoTask or any generative AI platform would be much easier because you just throw it into the students. But that will be not very sensible and irresponsible. You need to teach them how to write the prompts. And teaching students how to write a prompt is a very long task. It depends on their language proficiency. But however, for LingoTask, you need to set up all those tasks, pre-tasks. It will be quite challenging. And if you are doing some kind of creative task in class, LingoTask can't help you with them because you can't input all those data during the class. But for students, they will find ChatGPT or DeepSeek much more easier because it's a checkbox designed. Basically, you're like talking to someone else. But I would say that sometimes convenience, it doesn't really stand for beneficial to students. So as teacher, we have to make the decision.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have two keynote speakers now. One of them will be, speaking in Mandarin, and the other will be in English in TU level lecture halls. Okay, so see you there, and thank you very much for your participation today.